Okay, welcome back to the Caribou Media Outdoors podcast. With me this afternoon is the one and only P.J Reilly from Lancaster Archery. Welcome.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
It's I've been watching you on TV for years with all your videos that you do, and when I started this up, I made a list of people I wanted to try and get a hold of, and this was definitely one of them. So I appreciate it.
Cool.
So, usually like to start off with kind of going back in time a little bit. If you can, some people can remember, some people can't. If you
Yes.
can remember the first time you picked up a bow and how that kind of transitioned into bow hunting for you.
Yes, absolutely. My dad brought one. My dad was the principal of a high school at the time. I would have been somewheres in the vicinity of 10 years old. And he brought home a bow for me to just shoot in the backyard, your basic, just recurve bow.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was about it. I just remember ever since then, that was just the coolest thing I could think of was a bow and arrow. I had introductions to guns and stuff like that, which I shoot as well, but it just wasn't the same as archery. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so ever since then, I've had some kind of bow that I've been shooting.
Nice. Yeah. This, sort of the same thing for me. It started when I was like 7 on a family trip. We were at like an outdoor resort. It had a lot of activities, and one of them was archery, and kind of got the bug there. And then my mom had a friend that had a farm, and we'd go up to her place, and they'd always want to chat and not be around the kids. So her friend actually had a fiberglass bow that she gave me with a couple of arrows with some missing fletchings, and was like, "Shoo, go shoot the hay bales. We wanna go chat for a bit." And then our school had an archery team one year, so in high
Oh,
school I did that for a year or two, and then completely got away from it. And then friend of mine called me up and said, "I just bought a compound bow. This is nothing like what we're used to. You need to buy one." So
well, I remember my poor mother. I don't know what I would do to the bowstring, but somehow the bowstring would get broken or whatever. Because the
mm,
thing I remember was I would cut the cord that went to the blinds over the window in my bedroom. I would cut that and made a bowstring out of it. And my mom would come in like, "Why doesn't this work anymore?" I said,
where'd
"Oh,
the string go?
that's my bowstring now."
It's been repurposed, Mom.
Yeah. I have no idea how I figured out that would work, but somehow I did. And I don't
Yeah.
even know how I connected it. Like there was no loop. So I'm
Yeah.
probably tied a knot. I don't know.
Yeah, I can always remember being a kid walking around outside, and you look for a good stick, and if it had a
Yes.
good bend to it and it didn't have any, cracks in it, you just held on to that one because you might be able to
For
turn
sure.
that into even if the arrows just kind of didn't really go anywhere,
It didn't matter.
didn't matter, right? It was like the first time I was invited up hunting. I got into it later in life, so a family member had has 300 acres, and he's like, "Oh, come on up and bring your rifle or whatever." And I had a rifle, so I brought it, and I loved being out there, but I didn't really feel like I had the connection to what I was doing with the weapon that I had. Like, not
Yeah.
again, like you, nothing against rifles or anything, but it wasn't until the following year, so it would have been around 2019, I bought a Hoyt Helix Ultra, and my life changed. I
Uh-huh.
I re
Yeah.
I remember going into the bow shop in 2015 because I was interested, but I had young kids in sports and all different kinds of things, so I didn't have money laying around to buy a bow, so I just wanted to kinda educate myself and be a sponge and kinda take it all in. And I remember the Power Max was the big one for Hoyt at the time, and it
Mm-hmm.
was their package, ready to hunt kinda package. And I remember the guy in the store was like, "Oh, what do you want to shoot?" And I said, "Okay, listen, just so we're on the same page here, like I'm just here to look. I'm one of those guys just browsing, kind of figuring things out." He goes, "Well, how do you know what you're gonna like if you don't get a chance to shoot it?" And I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Do you know your draw length?" Nope. And he's like, "Okay, hold your
Nope.
hands out." Right. Went through took the time, and shot 3 arrows, and they're all touching each other, and I was like, Crap. You know?
Yes.
Thanks for making
Yeah.
it even more of an obsession for me. I have to hang this up and walk out the door.
I shot my first deer in 1991. That was the
Wow.
first deer I ever shot, and it was with a bow. I shot it with a bow before I shot one with a gun.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I just thought that was the coolest thing.
So, what's your bow setup now? What do you?
So I got a couple for hunting. I'm shooting Matthews Lift X 29.5. And then I also have a PSE Mach 33 DS. Those are my hunting bows. Target, I have Matthews titles, 38 for 3D, a 40 for indoor.
Nice. And what about your arrow setup? What would you use for arrows?
So for hunting, I'm shooting Easton Axis 4mm long range match grade. I never mess too much with the skinnies other than, target archery. And I don't know, I just love the way those things shoot. I shot 3 deer with them this year, and I just love them. Just love the performance for them.
Yeah, I've been doing this for about 6 years, and I've always shot Easton, started off with the Axis, and then once the Sonics came out, played around with those for a bit, went to buy more Sonics. They were sold out everywhere. So
yeah,
so I went to the 6.5 for a year, and then I was going to come back to the Sonics, and then I saw those experimental labels people were having on their arrows on social media, and I was like, oh, what's that? They're cooking something new up, and I thought, what could they do to the lineup? What could they add that, that hasn't been touched for a while? And I thought, I bet you it's another 5mm. And sure enough, the 5.0s came out. I just grabbed a dozen of those, and they're fantastic. So
yeah, if you can get hold of them, hold on to them, because boy, they're hard to get.
yeah, I didn't care where I got them from. Like, I'm in Canada, but I was searching everywhere. I was looking on your guys' site. I was looking on the Podium Archer site. I was looking at the, Extreme Outfitters, like everywhere. I was kind of going every day. I would check. And as soon as the first person had one, I was like, mine.
Yeah, the 5.0 and the Victory HLRs. Those are the two hot super. If a Victory HLR 300 spine, if you can find that, man, that's like the 5-leaf clover.
Yeah, and that's the 1.5K weave. Is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. I got here. Hold on a second.
Oh,
there's a couple right there. Just happened to have sitting behind me.
Oh, look at that. There we go.
Yeah. Got these set up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're super awesome arrows. But yeah, lots of good options this year. I felt like this year companies just came out with a bunch of really good stuff this year for whatever reason. I don't know why. Sights, arrows, whatever.
Everywhere. Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like I was talking to Josh Sidebottom from Elite a few weeks ago, and I had Brian Anderson from Prime on. I'm going to get Evan Williams is coming on next week, but it's almost like, some of the companies come out with things that are so close to each other in terms of like I know this year they did a lot with short draw and long draw options.
Mm-hmm.
But it was multiple companies, and there was a time where I was thinking, like, is there a mole? Are people getting the information? And but it's like, no, it's just what people want. It's the demand that's been out there. The short draw people have been saying, how come we don't get something that's, we're losing speed or we're losing cam performance because we're not getting it, which the modules now that a lot of companies are going to is really helping with that. But yeah, it's been incredible this year.
Yeah, it's great to see. Good to see.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've you went to the ATA show? Did you see anything there that really stuck out for you as new?
So yeah, there were several things, and like I mentioned, the arrows, lots of great new arrows this year. Sights seem to be, you got the Excel driver, HHA Nitrix, the Spot Hog Boonie, that's about a year old, but still relatively new. The new the dialed proof, the new version of that one. B3 has the Lynx, B3 archery. Just a whole bunch of really good sights that hit this year. Other years you might have one or two, or, not everybody puts one out every year. I don't know why, but this year it's like everybody came in with one. The new Matthews UV slider, just lots of really high-end sights that are good.
Mm-hmm.
The prices, that's a personal thing, whether you want to pay that or not.
To keep going up and up and up.
I mean, yeah. $700 for a hunting site. Yeah, that's salty. But there's good. I was just talking to one of our purchasing guys today about the more affordable stuff. It used to be like True Glow kind of had that market cornered.
Right.
But now you got True Glow, Trophy Ridge, Redline, CBE. There are multiple companies who are catering to the more affordable price point. They're good sites. They just maybe don't have all the bells and whistles, but not everybody wants to pay $500, $600, $700 for a site.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody needs that. But now if you are in the market for a budget site, you have more companies and more options, which is just always good for everybody. You're not forced to just True Glow still makes their sites, and they're still great sites. But now where we were talking about it, where it used to only be them, mm-hmm. Now there's a couple companies.
Lots of options out there. Yeah, I just switched to the dialed proof this year, and I just got my tape on it and was outside shooting yesterday. And, we get into the habit of shooting 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, like right on the number. I'm like, I'm going to go to 77 and see just how good. And I got right in the middle. I was like, wow.
Nice. And
I love this thing.
I think that's a great site where they came out with a first one, it got them in the market and people saw them. Maybe it wasn't perfect. They took the feedback, and for me, the proof nailed it. I mean, that site that's a great site. Yeah. That fixed everything that was an issue, not a problem, but some of the things that people had some complaints about with the first version.
Yeah, and I was hearing a lot of people saying that they couldn't believe how many changes they made. Like, it's not just the Arxos 2.0, it's a whole new site entirely. And they've listened to almost every single complaint that was out there. And sometimes year after year, you'll get one change or one or two changes, not a completely new product. So that's pretty incredible for them.
Right.
Bows this year, I was shooting the Elite Ethos last year, so I went from the Hoyt, then I picked up a Prime, because when I got into bow hunting and I googled bow hunting, I got Cameron Haynes and Tim Burnett popped up, so I binge watched every episode of Solo Hunter from season 5 onward, and then went back to the beginning. Nice. So I'm a visual learner. I saw Prime on TV all the time. I wanted a Prime. A dealer opened up not too far, and as I'm driving there, I'm like, I'm just gonna go look, but I knew I was gonna buy one. The problem for me is I'm right-handed, but I'm left-eye dominant, so I shoot left.
Gotcha.
Never left-handed bows in stock anywhere.
That's the tough one. Yep.
So I literally hold the right-handed one, and I'm like, should be good. That's my deciding factor. So when I was at TAC, and I think it'd been 3 weeks that I had the Ethos and completely happy with it. It was great. But I walked over to the Hoyt booth, and they were, very, very helpful. Do you want a hat? Come on over here. We'll shoot. I'm like, oh, I'd love to. Do you have any left-handed ones? They're like, yep. They grabbed one of the Alpha X and one of the RX-8. They set it all up for me. They're like, here you go. And I drew it back, and I was like blown away, because that was the first time I'd shot a Hoyt since 2019.
Okay.
And the difference. I was like, wow. Exactly. Well done, gentlemen. Like, ladies, this is incredible. what did you do to this cam? Because it's
I
completely.
give Hoyt props every year because, if you go back to 2019 and earlier, Hoyt had its base. And if you liked a Hoyt, odds are you didn't like anything else. And I would say Hoyts, for me, I struggled with them. They shot great, but there were bows I felt more comfortable with. But I give them props every year that now they keep getting better and better and better. And this year's bows, I think I picked the RX9. I was like, this is their best carbon bow ever. I just shot that thing lights out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was shooting I went from the Alpha X to the RX9 Ultra, back to the Alpha X, and I said, blindfolded, I can't tell you a difference between these two. They're so close.
Yeah.
It's so close.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then you think to yourself, what are they going to do next? Like, it's almost like we're reaching a point where bows have kind of reached their max in performance and things like that.
I think they're doing things more about the shooter experience, more so than performance. So the Hoyt, the big change this year, they went to a 4-track cam. So that to help with the cam lead. So the one thing Hoyt has left to do is have some sort of user-friendly tuning system. Right. They're the last one. Prime also doesn't have that, a do-it-yourself type of system. But when they went to that 4-track cam, that stands that cam upright a little bit more, so that actually, their intention was you probably don't need to mess with their spacers as much, which I found that's what happened to me. I took one out of the box, shot it, and just had to do a little rest adjustment. Bam, got it to tune.
Yeah.
So it seems like, Matthews, the Lift X, that is exactly the Lift, except now it has the tuning feature. I mean, they changed nothing, but the tuning system, it's identical.
And then you look at it and you're like, that makes so much sense. Why didn't anybody think of that? Right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
I mean,
leave the cam alone and just push the limb out, right? Yeah.
Elite's had set, Bowtech has their deadlock. They've all got their systems. They're Darton's new systems this year. Which theirs is totally unique. That's what I'm seeing now, where we're improving the shooter experience. Performance, we're not making any great strides there.
No.
But I have never been a big one for that anyway. If it hits what I'm aiming at, I don't care how fast it gets there.
Right. I agree. And it seemed to be for a few years there, it was all about the speed. Speed. It had to be fast. And then now we're kind of going off in a different direction. And then Prime comes out with the form, and you take a look, and I understand some people, they look at it and they don't like it, or they think, what am I looking at? And I was talking to Brian, and I said, I think what it is, if I had to, at least for my perspective, is I think it looks great now, but I think initially when you look at it, you're a bit confused because you've never seen a marriage of the two materials before. It's always been, it's either carbon or it's aluminum. But now that they've put them together, it just takes a second to.
Well, if I could put Prime at ease, we were all told when Matthews came out with the phase 4 dampening or the resistance phase dampening, that's going to crack. That's going to dry rot. This is going to be a problem. These limbs are going to. Hasn't happened. And I don't know if you talk to the engineers at Prime, but they were saying whatever that strength is in those carbon rods is infinitely higher than a bow hunter would ever put on it. I forget what his numbers were, but we talked to him, and it's like you can drive over with a car before someone's going to do something with just drawing it and shooting it.
And I think one of the launch videos, they put like 1,400 pounds they pushed down on the on the riser, and it just slipped off the machine. It didn't actually break. And then people were worried, wow, the connection points where the rods meet the aluminum, they're going to come apart. So then they had a machine that would pull on it, and they were hoping for 700 pounds, and I think it was like 8,200 when it actually broke. It's like, I think we're good. I think we're good.
I'm always amazed. There's, archers, not that they're not smart people, but they're like, oh, this is a problem. Well, probably the engineer that invented it thought of that.
Yeah. So, how long have you been with Lancaster then? When were you?
I guess this is my 12th year here.
Okay.
12 years. Yeah. 2013, I started working here.
And have you always been in the same role, or did you jump around to different jobs?
Well, I was hired to be the technical writer.
Oh, there you go.
So that was back when blogs were big.
Right.
So I came in to write the blog and anything. Rob Caulfield, the owner, I've known him for 35 years. I've known him forever. And so he and I have known each other through the years. And I forget when he came to me, but he was like, someday I'm going to get my website the way I want it. And he said, you're going to come work for me. I said, okay, yeah, whatever. So he called me one day and he was like, yeah, got my website ready. We got this blog set up. I want you to come do it. Okay, cool. So once I got in, that's about when YouTube started to become like the go-to resource for how do I X? Mm-hmm. That's when YouTube was starting to become that platform. It was the blogs forever. If you said, how do I do whatever? You got articles. Now it was shifting to YouTube. And so Rob was like, I don't know anything about the video. He hired me and a video producer. He said, you guys figure it out. So while I was writing the blog, we also launched our YouTube channel. In terms of product, we always had it for broadcasting the classic, but that's kind of it.
Right.
And so we started doing product videos and things like that. And one year we were like, hey, why don't we talk about the new bows that are coming out? So we started doing bow videos, and then it just kind of went from there. So I guess I became the YouTube person. Well, then there came a point where the ASA asked us to broadcast their tournaments. So we launched Competition Archery Media. And so now we broadcast to the Sportsman's Channel, the ASA tournaments. And so I'm the on-air host for that. So I don't know what you say my title is. Kind of do.
Wherever we need you.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
And that was, I never did stuff in front of the camera when we started doing product videos. I don't know anything. And it just became clear that I was able to think and talk on camera. That combination is what we found through the years. We have people who know a ton, way more about archery than I do, but you turn the camera on and they can't remember their name.
Right.
So for whatever reason, I was able to think and talk on camera. And so
you will
that kind of said, well, there you go.
So does your coverage of, does it change when you do you cover the different events as opposed to like doing the classic?
So it's kind of a bit of a scaled down version of the classic. The finals are very much the same. So ASA has what they call the pro pressure point shoot downs. That's each of the pro classes. They take the top 5 and they have a finals, 5 targets. They shoot, they cycle through the targets. So for that, it's very much like the classic, although the classic is 1v1. This is 5 people shooting.
Right.
But I mean, we got multiple cameras on the targets, multiple in the studio, just different angles. So the finals of the ASA, the pro pressure point shoot downs, that's very much the same. And that actually is broadcast, as I mentioned, to the Sportsman's Channel. We carry it on our Cam YouTube, but network TV, at the time that we started it, we were the only live event on the Sportsman's Channel. Now I think they have one other, but we took a couple years to work out the kinks, and then they came to us and they were like, hey, we've seen your stuff. We were on some smaller networks. We'd like to have it on the Sportsman's Channel. We're like, oh, okay, cool. So there's 6 ASA events a year, and those are what we put on the Sportsman's Channel.
Okay.
But then, our coverage, then obviously there's 2 days of qualification before you get to the finals. And so we do media coverage of that. And I would say that's a scaled down version of the Classic, because there's really only 2 of us out there, 3. And there's 6 pro classes. So it's, we just get around where we can. Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to take a quick break to talk to you about a couple of things that I've been using that I think might benefit you. One is this Numa Outdoors gear. This is in their Kaza OV pattern, which is great whitetail pattern when you're up in a tree in the fall and late season. They also have a Kaza pattern which has more green in it, which is good for spring through to the fall. Numa has given me a code to give to you of Caribou Media 20, which will save you 20% at checkout. Another product here that I've been using for years now is the Bulldog targets. This is a Canadian made target. They're made in Manitoba. They have a lifetime warranty. I've used that warranty twice now on a couple of my larger targets that are outside. It's very simple, very easy. These targets are 2-finger removal every single time, which is incredible. Field point only target. Bulldog's been gracious enough to give me a 20% discount code to give to you at checkout. Use code BD20-Caribou-Media. That'll save you 20% on these awesome targets. Now back to the show.
Yeah, and the other thing is, of course, the Classic is all in one place. You go to an ASA, there have literally been 2 pro ranges that were a mile apart. You got to get back and
geez. Yeah, golf cart.
Yes. It's a golf cart running through the swamps of Louisiana, through the mud and
studded tires. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun some weekends.
That's awesome. So for those people that might not know, which I assume there aren't very many, but can you tell everybody what the Lancaster Archery Classic is?
Sure. So that was a tournament I actually shot in the Classic before it was the Classic. That's how old I am. So this was our 21st year, but Lancaster Archery had a tournament in the 90s that was called the Lancaster Archery Christmas Classic. Always right after Christmas. That's what I shot in. It was in the pro shop. So then eventually Rob wanted to have, and that one was basically locals. Rob wanted to have a professional tournament. So he started the Lancaster Archery Classic. And I think he told me the first year was something like 100 and some shooters. I forget what he mentioned, but there were pros there. Jesse Broadwater won the first one. So everybody knows Jesse. He won the Open Pro the first year. And so it was meant as primarily like a marketing thing. I mean, Rob's big into tournament archery anyway. He was an alternate on the Olympic team back in the early 80s. So he's always heavily supported competition archery. And so this was a way for him to have a tournament, to have pros. It's a marketing thing for Lancaster Archery as well. And then every year he would just work to make it better. And I'm going to say about 8 years ago, he went to Nîmes, the Nîmes tournament in France. And when he came back, he was like, that's what I want. I want our finals to be that. And so now we took it to another level where we have the dark room with the dramatic lighting and all that kind of stuff. That really came from him going to that tournament in Nîmes and seeing, all right, this is what we need to do.
Nice.
So so now this year we had 3,000 archers. It draws the best of the best. It's indoor, 18 meters. We shoot 60 arrows. What's cool about the Classic, we talk to archers, is you don't have to be the best. just have to be good enough to keep advancing. So
Right.
we count the center X as an 11. So a 660 is a perfect round.
Mhm.
And you just have to make the top, like in Open Pro, it's 64. Top 64, you get to move on. And then it's kind of a NCAA style bracket, 1 versus 64, 2 versus 63.
Chop, chop,
Head
chop.
matches, single elimination, you get knocked out. Again, you don't have to be the best. You just got to beat the guy you're shooting against. Whittle it down. For Open Pro, we get to the final 8. And then there again, if you're in 8th place, in most tournaments, okay, congratulations, you finished 8th place. Well, at our tournament, 8th place, you can still win the whole thing, because we start out, we have what we call a shoot up format. Number 8 versus 7 is our first match. The winner advances against number 6, number 5. So if you can, we've only ever had one guy come from 8th place, and it wasn't in the Open Pros, in Men's Open.
Okay.
We've only ever had one guy go from 8 to win the whole thing.
Wow.
And this year we had Jacob Pettit started in number 6, and he got all the way up to 3rd before he got knocked out. So he was on a good run there in the Open Pro. Well, Nick Capper's actually elite archer. The year he did it, he came in 6th, and he shot his way to win it.
Wow.
And that's what we hear from the archers, is they say it's one of the toughest to win, because match play, when you're at that level, anything can happen. But they also say they like the fact that it's not like, I just shot a 9. Oh, well, I'm done. I might as well go.
Yeah.
Keep going. So.
Mm-hmm. So I started shooting tournaments, like I said, 2 years ago. A couple of friends of mine got me into it. And last year I was like, guys, we got to drive down there. We got to go do it. We're going to do it this year. And then we were actually on another podcast together, because they have the Full Draw podcast, CJ and Gary. And I was like, oh, wait, when's Lancaster? We got to go. And they're like, it's next week. I was like, So we have it now set in stone. We're coming next year, 100%.
September. End of September is usually when we open registration.
Okay, there you go. And so get on that, because it's, how many people fit on that line at once?
So we were just talking about that. There's 2 courts. They're back to back. Okay. One's shooting left, one's shooting right. You're separated by about 20 yards, shooting different ways. But I believe we have 140 total bales, and there'll be 4 people per bale.
Okay.
So half will be shooting at once, A-B line, and then you switch to the CD line. Gotcha. But 140 times 4 is the max to be shooting at one time on one line.
Wow. Yeah, I was doing some research. I think there was 116 at your first one in 2004. And
116. That sounds about right.
You're up to 3,000.
3,000.
That's amazing. And I think another cool thing that people like about the shoot-offs is the ability to hit that button and go for the 12.
Yeah, so that came from, we wanted to, it got to be just repetitive. 11, 11, 11, 11. Mm-hmm. Once you get to Open Pro and Men's Open, so we're like, how can we work some risk reward into it? That's Rob's thing, because that creates drama. Mm-hmm. So we added that 12 ring 3 years ago now, I think it was. And came up with some rules for TV, so that, okay, they know, all right, I'm going for the 12 now. So you had to call it again, just to add some pressure to it. And so we have that 12 ring, tiny. It's basically just bigger than a 27/64 diameter arrow. You can fit one inside out, but it's got to be dead center. So that's about how big it is. And it sits between the 7 and 8 line. So if you miss, you're done. That's it.
Game over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing, I think it was Greg Poole was saying, one way to shake things up a bit is to get that microphone in their face in between shots and try and talk about, just so
So,
you maybe
yeah.
disrupt their not that you're trying to make them not shoot well, but just to kind of, give a little bit of
So Rob's thing always was he had two reasons for that. Number one, he said that puts pressure on the shooter. He wants to do that. He wants to see who can handle the pressure best. And then second, if you watch other tournaments, you never even hear these archers talk. You don't even know what they sound like, let alone get to know a little bit of their personalities, things like that. So it's a way to get to know the archers and put some pressure on them. And what's funny is in the comments, we always see afterwards, that's not fair. You should leave them alone. But if you ask the archers, to a person, I have yet to meet someone. Some of them say it makes them nervous, but after they're like, that actually helped me calm down because I wasn't thinking about the match. Like I had to think about something else. The ones who have done it multiple times, they're definitely like, yes, we like that because it takes my mind off of what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then you try and get them to run through their setup, and sometimes they trip up because they're trying to focus on the target. They can't remember what strings they have or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the third one, sponsor shout outs. What they do. Because, the bow is obvious, pretty obvious, but you may not know what release they're shooting. You may not know what kind of knocks that they put biter knocks in, stuff like that. Bow strings for sure. You're never going to know what they're doing if they don't tell you. So
do you think they'll ever make any significant changes like to maybe the distance that they're shooting, like to the overall rules of indoor?
So the issue with that is, number one, it's been 18 meters for so long. How many, you think of the clubs all over the country, all over the world, are they able to get an extra whatever, 5 yards, 10 yards? Can they do that? That could potentially require a big change across the board. And second, there's enough with us adding the 12. There's been enough variation that we're still able to do that. And it's not just, we ended up perfect. We're still able to have that separation. Someone is able to rise up and do better than someone else.
When did the 12 ring start? Was that just a couple years ago, or I can't remember?
3 years ago. I believe this was our third year with the 12. Last year we had the button. No, we had 2 years with stepping on it with your foot. And this was so this is the third year. Yeah, we had 2 years stepping on it with the foot, and this was our first year using the hand button. Right. So this was our third year with the 12 ring.
And then for prize payouts, is it from first to 32nd place
in Open Pro? I believe so. Yeah, it depends on class. The big classes have deeper payouts. Open Pro, Bare Bow, Men's Open. Those are our 3 biggest classes. And those are the only 3 that we take the top 8. All the rest, we take the top 4 into the finals. But we pay down pretty deep, in that Open Pro, the top prize is $20,000 from us. So I think we pay out something like $300,000 every year in prize money. So it's cool. And then I didn't know if you're aware, but within the Classic, we have what's called the Easton Youth and Collegiate Trophy Tournament. So if you compete in the Classic, we have kids divisions. We have Youth Open, Youth Recurve. This year we had Youth Bow Hunter. If you're a kid and you shoot, let's say Thursday, and you qualify, you got to come back Saturday for your elimination matches. And then depending on which division, you may have to shoot Sunday. So you'd have to be there from Thursday to Sunday. If you're a kid, that can be a lot on your parents. So we wanted to figure a way to get kids in where they could come in and go out one day, you're done. So we have the youth tournament that's Saturday and Sunday. You only have to shoot one day. You shoot a 60-hour round on the same floor as everybody else, but you shoot your round and you're done. There's no eliminations. It's simple. Top score takes the prize.
Nice.
So it's a fraction of the time commitment, and it costs less too. So fraction of the cost. And this year we had over 800 kids shooting that.
Wow. Holy cow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And that's a fun day. I don't get to see much of it because the finals are going on, but I get little pieces of it now and then. Yeah. But yeah, that one's really become super popular just for that reason.
And then there's the 660 qualification. That there's a shootout for that. And is that another 20,000?
So this year was the first time, this year was the second time we had more than one person shoot a 660. The first year, it was just, we had a shoot off because we need to know who's number one and who's number two in the ranking.
Right.
But there was no prize money. Last year for our anniversary, we decided to put up extra money. Hey, you shoot a 660, extra 20,000. And then we had an anonymous donor give us 30. So we had 50,000 last year.
Wow.
Nobody shot a 660. And actually what's interesting is every pro that I asked said, no one's going to do it. They said, that's too much pressure. No one's going to shoot a 660 this year. And they didn't. And, the year before we had two, Zach Plonsky and Bodie Turner. Year before that, we had Bodie Turner shoot a 660. So then we had the 50,000 year. Nobody did it. Now this year we offered 20,000 and we had Bodie Turner, Matthias Fullerton, and Jacob Slusars. They all shot 660. So then they had a shoot off for a separate 20,000 that we had left over from last year, and Matthias Fullerton won that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had Joel Turner on a couple of weeks ago, and I had to say, watching your son, I said, watching Bodie shoot last year was probably one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I was on the edge of my seat, and I was texting my friends that we're all in this group chat together. Are you watching this right now? Like, this is unbelievable. Like, it must have been even more incredible. You were in the room at the time. So
he has no nerves. Or he looks like he does. Every time I ask him, he says, yeah, when he shot his first one, he said, oh man, he said, my sight pin was going into the 8 ring. It doesn't look like that, but yeah, he just looks as calm as could be. But yeah, he says he definitely feels the nerves. But yeah, super kid, super parents, Joel and Sarah, just the nicest people you ever meet. And so, yeah, anytime Bodie's up there shooting, man, I'm rooting for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now, getting into hunting a little bit, are you saddle hunting? Are you in a tree stand? Do you go back and forth? What are you doing?
So I'm a mix.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of hang-on stands. I'm Pennsylvania tree stand hunter. So I've been hunting from a climbing tree stand for 30 years. That's just what we had in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now I pre-hang a bunch of stands. The saddle hunting, I will say I've tried, and I have the setup, and I get it. I understand what it's for. I'm 57 years old, so it's not necessarily the most comfortable. Mm-hmm. And where I hunt, I don't have any place where I have to walk more than 500 yards.
Right.
And if I go into a woods where I got tulip poplars everywhere. So there's nothing I can't get. There's no place where I hunt where I can't get a climber in if I need to. Mm-hmm. And for me, a climbing stand is just more comfortable. But I get the saddle, if you got weird trees or if you're hiking miles in, I get it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I have a saddle setup, but I would say I'm fixed position or climbing tree stand are probably my two most common.
Yeah, a few years ago, my wife bought me a ladder stand for Christmas, and I went up, took it to a family property and set it up, and I think we've moved it once or twice, but when I started, it was, I got a week for spring bear, I got a week for deer if nothing happens, see you next year, right? And then as I kind of got into it more and more and more, I wanted to explore more public land. We bought a cottage that's surrounded by it, so
Nice.
I wanted to be more mobile. So then I bought bought an XOP stand, really super light one. That was
Yeah.
great, but then the saddles came out, and I picked up one of those, and it's so nice. You can just strap it to your back. Well, you can do that with the hang-on stands too, but being able to just, where do I want to go today? If you don't want to
Sure.
go back to the same spot, it's awesome. So, and having that like 270 degrees around the tree can be very helpful. But again, you can be in different positions that you might not be used to shooting from. So make sure,
Yeah.
if you are doing this or getting into that, make sure you practice. So.
It's funny when people talk about the weight. If you're my age, you carried stands that weighed 30 to 40 pounds. So
Yeah.
when it gets down to, they're like, oh man, this thing weighs 11 pounds. I'm like,
it's so heavy.
That's awesome. 11 pounds is heavy. Come on. Yeah. I hear the discussions. I'm like, you never carried a baker on your back with the wooden platform. Those things were heavy.
That's awesome. Do you have any hunting stories you want to share, either from last year or just something memorable?
So one of the things people may not know is that I've been writing for hunting magazines for over 30 years. I've written for almost all of them. And so to get started, how do you get started in that? Because you've got established people. So the way I got started was I started looking for holes, hunting whitetails in the rut. There's 800 people writing about that. So what is that is getting missed? And so I started doing some different things, going to different places, which allowed me to get a foot in because the magazines didn't have that. So I did some strange things, like there's a subspecies of deer called a Carmen Mountain whitetail. It only lives in extreme southwest Texas. It is recognized. I think Safari Club recognized it. It's a wild deer. But so I went to Texas to hunt them. Nobody had done a story on them. I looked around North America. I'm like, okay, where are people? What are you not hearing about? And I've discovered in my research, North Dakota has the toughest whitetail tag in the country to get. Took me 5 years to draw one.
Oh, wow.
And so I went there and I hunted all of about 15 minutes and shot a 160-inch 10-pointer. There was giant deer everywhere. But that's because the state at that time, this is 15 years ago, there was only 100,000 deer tags for the entire state of North Dakota. It's twice the size of Pennsylvania. We give out like 1 million. Mm-hmm. They had 100,000. So, of course, there were giant deer because they could get age. But so I just started doing things. Indiana was another one that wasn't hitting the radar. I went and hunted muskox. I went to Iceland and hunted reindeer.
Wow.
I drew a once in a lifetime oryx tag on the White Sands Missile Base in New Mexico. I did a lot of weird stuff like that for a long time just to get my foot in the door.
That's awesome. Is there anything that's on a bucket list for you that you want to still hunt out there?
So this year, my favorite thing I discovered through the years to hunt is caribou. I just love anything in the Arctic. It's so different from what I see. The first time I went to the Arctic, I was like, man, I like this place. So I've been caribou hunting multiple times. As you know, it's getting harder and harder and harder, to mean more expensive. And so I'm going one more time. I found a place that does a 2-bull hunt in Nunavut. Now, I should mention, I like the central Canadian barren ground caribou. You still got mountains. You got the woodland. You can go to the mountains of Alaska, North Slope. I like that high Canadian Arctic. And so I found it's like the only place in Nunavut that does a 2-bull hunt that you don't have to mortgage the house for.
Oh,
I'm going back this September. And to me, caribou, even though I've been there a couple times, is always a bucket list just because I love it so much.
that's interesting. I'll have to look at that up there. I've always been attracted to the woodland. They're my favorite. The woodland caribou
Gotcha.
in Newfoundland. That's my number one. So I went out to BC for elk a couple of years ago, and we had some cool opportunities, but wasn't able to put one down. So we're going to go back probably next year, and I've applied
Gotcha.
actually for Pennsylvania too. So we'll
The
see.
elk tag.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So
So
we'll see.
that one I don't even apply for. I think because I just see them all the time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if I'm going to go hunt elk, I want to go somewhere unique.
Yeah. Our population up here is in Ontario anyway, is so small that if you ever got one of the tags, you'd probably never get another one. So,
well, the first time I went caribou hunting was in Quebec, and that was when everybody did that hunt. Everybody went there, and it was affordable. It was a great hunt. 2 bulls. That was awesome. And of course, that's gone now. I mean, can't do that at all anymore.
It's shut down now too. So,
yeah.
Yep. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Nunavut, to check that out.
Yeah, and I've discovered the last couple of years, I don't know, I spent so many years going to other places. I've hunted Illinois every year for 18, 19 years, I forget, which I love that. But for some reason, the last couple of years, I just have discovered that I really just like hunting around home. I now live right where I hunt.
Oh, perfect.
So kind of cool. I never had that in my life before. So it's kind of cool to just you're basically always scouting because a deer, hey, I can hunt that deer. So it's gotten kind of fun. We don't have giant deer around me. Everybody hunts. That's just the way it is. But I don't care. It's fun to be able to, and one of the reasons I like the pre-hung stands is I can go home from work, boom, run out, get in a tree stand, even if it's only for 2 hours. And that's much simpler than having to set up, everything or figure out where you're going to go. It's just, I know I got these tree stands out, boom, I can go get in one. I can go before work, just super simple. And I think the farthest place I have from my house is maybe 15 minutes tops.
Wow. Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome. My cottage is about 2.5 hours, but I live in about the middle of 1,000 acres of corn. But the farmer across the road has got a bit of a woodlot to his property. So I saw him out by the mailbox and I was like, can I get permission in there? I said, you'll never hear me. I use a bow and it was great. I could set up in there. I could leave my stuff set up. And like you said, get home from work. I'm running across the street, right? Till dinner time or whatever. It's been so awesome to have that opportunity.
It's nice. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for jumping on. I've taken up a lot of your time today, but
no worries.
Love to have you on again at some point. Can you let everybody know how to find you and the website and the classic and YouTube and everything?
Yeah. Lancasterarchery.com is our parent website. If you go on YouTube, you can search Lancaster Archery Supply. We got our own YouTube channel, Competition Archery Media. We have all the social media plus YouTube. That's where we do the competition, except for the classic. Classic is separate, but any of the competition stuff we do, we go to NFA Indoor Nationals, Vegas. We'll be at the Vegas shoot next week. The ASA stuff, anything we do competition outside of the Lancaster Archery Classic, we do on Competition Archery Media. So you can find us all there.
Awesome. Great. Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon and thanks again.
All right. Thanks for having me, Josh.